Welcome, everyone. If you don't know me yet, I'm Jamie Coles. I'm the community manager of the Legal Marketing Academy by GNGF, our digital mastermind group for growth-focused attorneys. Every week in the Legal Marketing Academy, we dive into the important topics that will help you build your law firm business into the practice of your dreams. On this show, we focus on the tools and tactics you need for growing and running your law firm. So I'm excited to have today's guest, Raquel Panku, co-director of Abby Connect. We've got moderators with us today, so please ask questions or just say hi to our producer Daniel in the chat. Daniel will be adding links and other resources for all of us there in the chat. You can also find a roundup of everything from today's session as well as the replay at 4.gnGF.com/Abby. That's ABBY. There you can request a free copy of our best-selling book, Online Law Practice Strategies, How to Turn Clicks into Clients, as well as a free 3-session course from the Legal Marketing Academy. More on that later. Thanks to our special guest speaker, Raquel, you will also receive the visual guide to a virtual reception, a comprehensive guide to everything you need to know about live virtual receptionist services created by the team at Abby Connect. I think that's all the housekeeping I have, so thank you, Raquel, for joining us. I'm so excited to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So first, I want to just let everyone know who you are. So can you introduce yourself today?
100% yes.
Yeah.
So I am Raquel Penko, and I am the Abby Way co-director, and I work at a company called Abby Connect, and we are a virtual receptionist solution. We help many attorneys in small to medium-sized firms across the United States. Next month is my 12 years with the company, and I've worn many hats during my time here. I
Mhm.
did start out as a virtual receptionist, which I do believe is one of the most important roles at Abby Connect, as that is the service we do provide. And as I mentioned today, I am the Abby Way co-director, and along with my partner, we oversee hiring, training, staff development, culture, and external learning through webinars and educating others how to provide excellent customer service.
Now that's really awesome. So as you probably know, Raquel, our series, our webinar series is brought to you by the Legal Marketing Academy.
Mhm.
And the Legal Marketing Academy is similar values as you just spoke about, and they're actually geared towards growth-minded small businesses, small to medium-sized law firms specifically, and how to grow their intake and their all of business practices, clientele. We have video tutorials
Mhm.
and everything to help them really take those active, proactive steps to grow their business. And I'm actually the community manager in that the Legal Marketing Academy, and it's just been really great to see all these people actively working towards their goals. And what we really want to offer to them is advice on intake. So that's
Mhm.
why we've developed such a good relationship with Abby Connect, and I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. Yes, and that's amazing that you have that because that sounds like an amazing resource for your community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, today, what we want to talk about specifically, since we do have Abby Connect here to kind of pick their brain, we want to talk about the nexus, right, between marketing, which is what GNGF specializes in, and intake, specifically like virtual assistants, um, and how they kind of work together and they're both very necessary for each other's success. So first, let's start off because we have someone that answered one of the polls. What is a virtual assistant?
Yes, yes. And actually it's more of the virtual receptionist source.
Receptionist, yeah.
Yeah. So what is a virtual receptionist? Great question. First, a virtual receptionist is a friendly professional human being who answers phones for small to medium-sized law firms, sounding like they're right there in the office with you, except they're off site. So a virtual receptionist differs from an in-house receptionist, an answering service, and an automated answering system in the following ways. So an answering service, oftentimes they can be cold and not as personable as
Mhm.
a virtual receptionist service like Abby Connect. Answering services are also often not based in the US. A virtual receptionist is also beneficial over an answering service because virtual receptionists are way more detail oriented, they have more functionality, they optimize your current team better. They offer more support. They personally connect with your callers if you want them to. They build trust and they help your reputation. So we've all experienced what it's like to be on the phone with an automated system. It's cold, it's impersonal, and oftentimes pretty frustrating.
Mhm.
So, and a virtual receptionist is beneficial over an automated system because you get a live, personable human answering your calls instead of an automated recording system. So while Avi Connect is a virtual receptionist solution, we are different in a couple of ways. One being that we are family owned, we've been in business for 17 years, and we value our culture so our employees are happier on the phones. The second difference is that an answering service is the most basic solution. They answer the phone, they ask for your name, and they take messages only. They could be dry, they could be unengaged, maybe even sound uncaring, and that they're just there to do the job. So like in my experience, for example, when I call my doctor after business hours and it's so clear that I reached a service because their tone and their attentiveness aren't quite like the actual receptionist I know that typically sits in the office. So Abby Connect does everything a typical virtual receptionist does. Plus, when it comes to your brand and your image, which is super important, we strive to uphold it on your behalf. We want to sound like we're physically an extension of your firm, as if our receptionists are sitting in your office, whether that be in California, Nevada, Ohio.
Yeah,
Mhm,
that's really great. We are obviously very big within GNGF on maintaining a consistent brand. So
mhm,
to hear that it's being followed through even in intake is like top notch.
100%. You're
Yeah,
handing over your reputation to us, and we want to uphold
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So another thing we do here at GNGF is SEO, and it's kind of like an imperfect science. There's a lot that goes into it to try to get the most targeted customer that we can, but a lot of times it also casts a wider net. But that leads to leads and calls that are not necessarily perfect for the attorney. And I know that the virtual receptionist, they handle intake and allow that attorney to only really handle the like cases that really would be a perfect fit for their firm. So how do you go about doing that and how can you filter out those qualified leads?
Yeah, absolutely. So, at the most basic level, I would understand and get more details about their case during the intake to see if it's something that you actually handle. For example, what city or state did the incident occur to confirm it's geographically in a location that you could actually practice law in, right?
Mhm.
As well as what type of case is it for the same reason? Was there an injury? Was it a civil matter, a family issue? Is this even a type of case that you can take?
And I know that you said that when you have somebody come to you, like as a client of yours, you have them fill out questionnaires and answer some questions about their branding. Can you kind of explain a little bit about that and then how it leads you to a success in your campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right. So you have to know the right questions to ask, right?
Hmm.
Know what information you want to gather and how this information can shed light on your marketing efforts. So, for example, if you ask your new lead, how they heard about your firm, you can identify what part of your budget or what campaign generated the lead. If you ask them information about the type of case, you can understand whether or not your marketing efforts are generating qualified leads.
Hmm. Yeah. So is there like particular questions that are most important to you, I think, when you're doing those kinds of things in the questionnaires that kind of set you up to be successful for that particular brand?
Um, yeah, I think it is just really to understand where there is that they're coming from
Mhm.
and being able to come together and have that vision together so that you guys are on the same page.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we have our law firm, right? So someone's walking in or calling for the first time, who should be that first point of contact? Is it the head attorney that's names on the billboards and everything, or is it somebody else?
Yeah, I'm gonna say no on the attorney. It should definitely be someone else, because the attorney is focusing on the things that they do best, right? And
Mhm.
so when you are spending on marketing dollars and resources, Do you have an actual process of who answers, right?
Mhm.
So if you have a receptionist, great. However, if you do in fact have a receptionist, is that person chained to the desk? I'm thinking not. So you have to have a plan for when the receptionist does step away. They do take a break, they do go on vacation, they get sick and or they go home for the day. If no one answers the phone, the first impression isn't a good one, just for the fact that the phone call went unanswered. So that first point of contact should be your receptionist. And 61% of law firm inbound inquiries, they come from a phone call. So while the receptionist is the first point of contact when a new client calls in, a virtual receptionist can step in. They can optimize your team. They can offer support if your receptionist is running late or is helping another client or has left for the evening or weekend. A team of virtual receptionists, they're going to maintain that great reputation as they've trained to represent your firm.
Mhm. Yeah, we constantly in the Legal Marketing Academy talk about like what duties the lawyer should be taking on. Because I think when you're just starting out small, it's easy to think that you have to do everything. And we constantly talk about what is the right choice for you. What do you want to be doing in the firm? Because it might not be answering the phones, or it might be taking on more of a business manager role, but to what extent? Outsourcing is a possibility, you know?
Oh, 100%. And that's even like, that's where it comes from, that art of delegation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, should you be that person answering the phone? Probably not.
Yeah.
And you'll always be interrupted and your focus will be taken away. Whereas that receptionist, that is their main focus.
Yeah. And attorneys are so good at being attorneys. They have to go through a lot to get to that point. So if that's really where they want to spend the majority of their time, they're going to have to figure out how to automate and do things on the business side so that their operations can be maintained easily.
Absolutely. You want to be able to scale.
Yes. Speaking of the importance of having a receptionist and how, like, so what's the importance of having a receptionist and how do they take in new clients?
Yeah,
But like scale effectively. Like we're talking about growing firms, right?
exactly. And you're not able to grow your firm if you're that solopreneur who's answering the phones, taking the intake, doing the paralegal stuff, and representing the clients, right? So the importance of having your receptionist handle the intake is that receptionists are very powerful when it comes to backbone and support. Paralegals, they often take on the role of receptionists, and they are constantly being taken away to answer the phones when they could be and should be focused on billable hours,
Hmm.
contracts, legal documents, preparing for trials instead. And when it comes to scaling, you don't want to overload the paralegals or staff. Let them do what they do best and prepare them for success. You want to have a receptionist team take on the sole responsibility of answering the phone and handling a customized intake for the entire firm. You also don't want to bombard your team with like those unqualified leads and calls. You want to let the receptionist filter those calls too. And as firms grow, the clientele will grow, and having a virtual receptionist team will empower your firm to grow.
So that's like incredible. But like, what is that impact that those receptionists have on the pre-screening of the clients? You know, we probably really want to talk about that because it's important to for the attorneys to only be handling those cases that actually matter and they're actually going to take on as clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge impact. So whether that be your in-house receptionist or your virtual receptionist solution,
Mhm.
first, there is a misconception that a virtual receptionist will replace your in-house receptionist. And that's not always true. We can do either. We can manage all incoming calls like we're in the office with you, or we can offer support to your in-house team. So we're more of a support solution, and we're here to allow your in-house staff to be more effective and optimize them. So the receptionists doing what they do best, the paralegals and staff are doing what they do best. So I mentioned that paralegals at times they take on receptionist responsibilities and they're not focusing on their own role, right? Plus, they're being taken away from billable time.
Mhm.
So pre-screening should really be done at the receptionist level to ensure qualified leads are taken care of first. And it allows efficiency for the rest of the staff.
Mhm.
So, for example, we have helped attorneys save money, we've helped them optimize their time, we've represented them professionally, we were super friendly, we directed callers to the right place, and a live person answered their calls instead of the caller going to voicemail. So the impact is huge for all of those reasons.
Yeah. And for those of you who were attendees on the Mike Whalen webinar, he talked about how we have to have people to build us up and like support us in different ways.
Mhm.
And the receptionist is maybe undervalued because this could make a huge difference in their firm,
Oh,
right?
100%. They're
Yeah.
they're the first interaction with that client.
Yeah.
Again, that reputation is handed over to that virtual receptionist,
Yeah.
and then it's huge.
Yes. And it's undervalued that like if we do all this work in marketing and we're in the legal marketing academy really like digging into SEO and on-site optimization, it's not going to be worth it if there's no one there
Hmm.
answering the phones.
100%. Yes, and it's like
Yeah.
all that work and even like all that marketing dollars went to waste.
Exactly. Yeah, and we don't want that. We're small to medium-sized firms. We're not here to waste money, right?
Exactly.
It's
No,
important. Yeah.
no, we're here for the long haul and we want to stay in business.
Yes. So what actually is the impact of uh what is the best way to handle potential client calls when you get them? Or even as like if you're advising firms and their receptionists, what is the best way to handle them?
Yes. So great questions. So now that your marketing dollars are working, right? How do you get that
Mhm.
best bang for your buck? So first, know what it is that you want to accomplish with these calls once they do come in. Do
Mhm.
you want to wow the caller or the potential client? Do you want accuracy? How well do you want the person who answers your phone to represent you? So I'm going to talk about a couple of tips here. So the
Yeah.
first tip I'm going to talk about is tone. So no one wants to be greeted by someone who seems like bored or unfriendly. If someone is calling your firm, yeah, they likely need help. So the person who answers the phone with a sincere hello or thank you recites the company's name along with their name in a beautiful, professional, sincere, like wanting to help type of tone is the first impression that the caller hears. So tone is number one. The second tip is in handling potential client calls, this is huge, is empathy. So people calling into your firm, they're not always happy. They can be upset, sad, angry, frustrated, and you need someone to be on that receiving end who gets it, who understands what they're going through, how they're feeling, and even voice it to the potential client. It's already hard for the caller to call in and explain what's going on with them. So, like, help them out by empathizing and connecting with them. It's going to build trust. 67% of customers say that they're going to pay more for a great experience. So, if you want to increase your conversions and you want to help more clients, it's going to reside in that first impression of you and your firm, and that's through your receptionist. So, and then another important factor is accuracy. If the person handling the potential client calls, they're doing the first two tips great, but they aren't taking down accurate information, oh my gosh, then professionalism just went out the window. So confirm all the details, the spelling of their names, their phone number, their email address, their situation, everything. If the receptionist can't connect the caller with the attorney right away, then the attorney needs to be able to reach the caller and have all the information correct as if they themselves answered the phone.
Yeah, and in the Legal Marketing Academy, specifically with content, we try to get them to switch their mindset, the attorneys, because they're constantly dealing with these potentially tragic situations. So
Hmm.
it's natural for them to not view it as something unique or different, but for the client it is. So when they're calling in and they're making that first point of contact, they might really feel like have a heavy heart, like this is something that's really changing to their like going to change their lives, and they really need to be greeted with that empathy. So we talk all the time about understanding who your audience is and thinking about it from their perspective, because that's so important with the relationship of the client.
Yeah, 100%. And as that caller, the person who needs help, if they call a place looking
Mhm.
for help and they're not greeted by someone who seems like they want to help,
Right.
I don't think that me as the caller would want to go with that attorney. Like, I want
Absolutely.
to feel heard. I want to feel like I can trust them.
Yeah, absolutely. That bond is so wildly important. Yeah.
100%.
You
It
have to be able
is.
to trust your attorney, right?
Well, absolutely, because they're the ones who's going to help you with this
Mhm.
case. And if you can't trust the receptionist, and the receptionist is the face of the company, if
Mhm.
you can't trust that person, then you're probably not going to go with them. You're going to call the next person that you feel that trust, and feel that bond, or feel that connection because it feels right. And you're going to
Mhm.
go with the person that feels right.
Yeah, and we're dealing like attorneys as a group are dealing with potentially embarrassing like areas of law. Like not everyone wants to. That's why we talk about Google search, why it's so important, because not everyone wants to go to another friend and ask, "Hey, how do I file bankruptcy?"
Hmm.
Like it's the same thing. Like when they're finally getting the courage to call an attorney, and if they have to be greeted with comfort and like empathy, or it's just they're gonna put a wall up, and they're not gonna get the
100%.
services. Yeah,
Exactly. And a lot of times they're not calling an attorney because they're in a good place.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to ask you, so what are the steps that we can take to improve intake within our firms? And how can we do this in a way that results in getting more clients? Because that's
Yeah.
the ultimate goal, right?
Yes, 100%. So I'm going to say, for that receptionist, right, the steps to improve that intake process, the person who's actually answering the phone, the first step is to smile over the phone. And this goes back to that tone tip. So to have an amazing tone for that first impression is to smile. So, of course, you want to have an appropriate tone for the caller's feelings and their situation. But when you first answer the phone, the tone should start out amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, because you don't know what it is that they're calling about, but you want to have that representation. So to improve that intake right away is smile. Okay, and then that second step is to actively listen. Listen to their tone, listen to
Mhm.
their situation, and understand what they're feeling without them even having to tell you what they're feeling, because this is going to lead to the next step, which is to personally connect. So after listening to the caller, now you can respond appropriately. And you want to be sure, you want to also ask engaging and thoughtful questions, because you also want to make the caller feel heard, build trust, like we talked about.
Mhm.
And you want to help them feel invested in the process. And when you do this, this is going to decrease the likelihood that they're going to contact a competitor. And we talked about that too. So engaging and connecting with people, that turns their day around.
Mhm.
Also, being able to answer basic questions about the consultation process to ease the caller's mind about the experience. So we talked about how most people who call an attorney, they're not in a good place. They are in a high stress situation. So
Right.
people aren't calling attorneys typically because things are going well. So the more receptionists can show empathy and demonstrate that competency, the safer the caller is going to feel, and the more that they're going to trust the firm. And the last step I would say is to have a backup for your receptionist, because if your firm is inundated with calls, hopefully, right, the receptionist can only take on so many calls at once.
Mhm.
And also, what happens if your receptionist, if they're stuck in traffic, they're late, they're sick, or it's even after hours? You don't want to miss any calls. And when you answer every single one of them, it's going to help you gain more clients. So, with all that said, is it okay? Can I talk about some things like not to do?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
good, good, good. Since because we're talking about tone and we're talking about all these
Yeah.
things, right? And so, like an example of low tone, low energy versus like a great engaged tone, right? So GNGF, how can I help? Versus, thank you for calling GNGF. This is Raquel. How may I assist you? So there's that huge difference when you have that tone and energy. Do you want to work with someone that has a low one or one that's like super engaged, right? And then another thing is not repeating back their information or issue. If I personally gave like all my information to someone and they didn't confirm it, my trust level is going down pretty quickly, because how can I trust that they have everything correct if they didn't even confirm or repeat back anything? Another thing is like not being engaged. So the caller's doing most of the talking, and then the receptionist lacks empathy. That's not a good thing. And then another thing that you don't want to do is allowing your calls go to voicemail. That's a big one. This is part of that first impression. And yeah, 75% of callers, they're not going to leave a voicemail. So, for example, in my own example here, like I live in an area where legal matters, they often relate to land and property lines and fence issues. So there was a time that I had to like call around looking for an attorney. And my first two phone calls, they went to voicemail. And I fell in that statistic. I hung up right away. I called the next attorney listed on Google until I reached that live person.
Yeah, so I actually want to pull in an experience that I've had working with a client in the academy. And it was interesting because they felt in order for them to stay consistent with who they were, their brand, make sure somebody was actively caring about the person on the phone, that they had to be the one to make them their cell phone, particularly their cell phone, available 24/7. And that's not exactly efficient either, right?
Mm-mm.
Like, how can like the virtual receptionist help kind of combat that feeling of like I have to do it all myself?
Right, absolutely. I see the intent there. There's a good intentionality, and it's like,
Yes.
here's my cell phone, call me at any time. But then that's not really feasible or very scalable either.
Right.
And so that receptionist, again, is that powerful backbone where our service is 24/7. We
Mhm.
literally can answer the phones for you around the clock, representing you, and we're the best ones to do that.
Right.
The attorney is the best one to be in the courtroom.
Mhm. Yeah, and it doesn't promote like work-life balance in any way when you're answering the phone at 2 in the morning. Because
Correct.
legal matters do happen at 2 in the morning. Someone should have to answer the phone, but maybe not the person who's going to have to be in court the next day, right?
Exactly. It doesn't sound scalable, it doesn't sound feasible, and it doesn't sound very healthy
No,
for the attorney either.
I know I wouldn't want clients calling me at 2 in the morning.
No, and nor would I if, with the spouse either.
Right, exactly, exactly. Nobody call me at 2 in the morning.
Mm-mm. No.
Well, that's awesome. Um, I just wanted to wrap up here, but we do have some resources available for everybody. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you have made available and Abby Connect has made available to everyone viewing today?
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone is interested in how Abby Connect can help them, please go to abby.com, and that's abby.com. We do have a special promotion of 5% off for the first 3 months if you mention this webinar with GNGF. Plus, with our GNGF partnership, you'll receive $150 off your first bill. If you'd like to learn a bit more about how Abby can help your firm, please feel free to download our guide to virtual reception, along with a recent case study we did with the Patriot Law Firm.
And I think Daniel's going to drop that in the chat for anybody who is looking for it right now because they're so excited. So that'll be in the
Hmm.
chat. Also, if they visit 4.gnGF.com/Abby, that's 4.gnGF.com/Abby, ABBY, they will also have a link available to them, which will send you to all the promotions that you just mentioned. And
Awesome.
it'll also send you to the Legal Marketing Academy. We have developed 3 free sessions to the public. So if you are interested in kind of this nexus between intake and marketing and kind of getting your hands dirty when it comes to developing your own marketing within your firm, check those out. They're really great resources. And within the community, we do often talk about the importance of intake because it really is almost like not worth it to spend all this time and money on marketing if you don't have intake. And so we really value that connection and value the process that both involved. So thank you so much, Raquel, because I can't stress enough, I think, the importance of intake, and it sounds like the virtual receptionist is the way to go.
Yes, no, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me. And the virtual receptionist solution is definitely someone who's going to extend your business and keep it running.
Yeah. And do you want to quickly mention where they can find you online?
Yes, abby.com, abby.com.
Great. All right. So Raquel, thank you so much again. This has been a really great session, and oh, we do have questions. So if you don't mind sticking around, we
No,
have some
not at
questions.
all.
Yeah. Okay. Let me pull these up for us. So actually, what are some key elements when capturing information from those leads? And how do you identify and interpret trends, insights to inform decision making?
Yeah. Excellent. Good question. So you're asking about the key elements when capturing information from leads?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. So right. So you want to have the basics of getting like their first and their last name, their phone number, the type of case. But if you want to go above and beyond, make that intake form customizable and relevant to your office. You also want to have multiple forms of contact. Ask the lead if they prefer phone call versus text versus email. And of course, you also want to see how your marketing campaigns are doing, ask how they heard of you.
Mhm.
Or better yet, is there someone that you can thank for them referring them over to you? And on a you always want to ask more about what happened to them. Get all the details of their story, the who, the what, the where, the when, and the how. Not only is this information crucial for lawyers, but it's also the opportunity to create a great first impression, connect, and build trust. And the more information that you have about the person, their case, their issue, their needs, the more likely that you're also going to capture their heart and you're also going to capture their business.
Awesome. Yeah. And we actually have a ton of questions in here. So if you don't mind sticking around for a little bit.
No, not at all.
But we also have another question on how are conversion rates and ROI impacted during intake?
Oh, yes, great question. Okay, so well, once you have your marketing plan in place, yes, getting those phone calls, it's part of the strategy, right?
Mhm.
Having your phones answered, it's going to improve your conversion rates because you can lose business if you don't answer. And we mentioned that earlier. And I have a different stat here where 85% of callers who don't reach you on the first call, they're not going to call back and they're going to reach out to your competitor. I certainly did that. So to get even close to an ROI and keep your cost per acquisition and your cost per lead low, you got to answer those phone calls.
And not to mention, like, time is money, right? Like, if you're spending time constantly answering phone calls, you're not billing clients that are paying you. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
So I think even that alone is an effect on our ROI.
100%.
We also have a question about preparation. How do you prepare frontline people to master the task of lead capturing?
Okay, great. First and foremost, it's going to start with the customization of your intake. So once you know what you want to capture in that first client phone call, like their name, their number, their email, details of their issue, you must proficiently train your frontline people on not just what to ask, but how to ask for that information. So receptionists and frontline representatives, they also need to know and use the correct lingo. There's nothing worse than calling in somewhere, needing help, and you could tell that the person that you're speaking with that they're untrained, they're unsure, they're not confident. So preparing our frontliners is all about the knowledge of the field, the language, being able to express empathy, and most importantly, how to make that great first impression. So people who are handling the intake process, often the receptionist has that first opportunity to make the impression on the potential client that this is the firm that cares about them as people and their case.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we actually have somebody inquiring about your resources. Can you kind of expand on the resources that you have made available to them today and like what's really they're going to get in those resources?
Yes.
Yeah.
So one of them is the guide to virtual reception. So that's going to give you a lot more information on that original question. What's a virtual assistant, which is really a virtual receptionist. So when you do download that guide, you're going to get a lot more insight of how it is that we work and how we can help you guys. And then the other one is a case study with one of our clients, which is the Patriot Law Firm, and it talks about their customer journey with us as their vendor.
Awesome. Yeah. And I've read through those, are really great. So I highly
Yeah.
recommend checking those out.
Hmm.
And then another question we have for you guys is how extensive is the training that your virtual assistants receive in order to screen and handle calls to the firm's specifications?
I love that. Great question. So when we hire on receptionists, they go through a rigorous 5-week training program with our training and development specialist and the training development manager. So for 5 weeks, they are being trained on accounts and how to handle the accounts and where to look for information on the account and the particular lingo and the knowledge of the field because we want them to be fully prepared when they start taking on calls. So we have a 5-week training program to help them.
And it sounds, I'm not trying to like think for somebody else, but it sounds like that person's really cares about their clients' needs and really wants the best for them. So they're trying to ensure quality receptionist. And I think with everything you said regarding the training and
Mhm.
the serious, like all the tips and tricks that they have during the call to make somebody feel welcome
Yes.
is so important, especially to this attorney who's asking that question.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And our vision is to revolutionize the customer experience.
Hmm.
And one of our core values is excellence and integrity. And the only way for us to do any of those things is to go through a very, very specified training so that our receptionists can really be the front facing people of your firm.
And it sounds like this last question we have might be geared more towards GNGF, but they want to know how do we improve our SEO? And I that is such a big question, but without getting into too much detail, it's really about consistency, and we talk about how to maintain that consistency through content. In many other videos that we have 4 sessions on it within the Legal Marketing Academy, so that's how big of a question that is. But we do have a webinar available uh, that does go over how the 90-day content plan, and I suggest you check it out just by going to that for.gnGF.com/Abby, ABBY. Um, and then actually we have a follow-up question to that for you, Raquel.
Okay.
Can the virtual assistant help SEO?
Hmm.
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one because the virtual receptionist is the one who's going to be handling like your intake, your first impression, and using the tone and everything for that focus area for that first impression. So I'm not sure if the virtual receptionist can help with the SEO, maybe like an actual assistant, I'm thinking, but for the receptionist,
You
I'm
know, what
not
actually came to
sure.
mind when I heard that question is that it might not help like actually implementing SEO, but the virtual receptionist can collect data regarding whether or not these leads came from Google or like word of mouth
Yes.
and all this stuff. And that's going to teach you whether or not your SEO efforts are coming to fruition. So
Yes.
I think that that's a huge aspect because SEO is all about trial and error, right? Like if the data
Mhm.
is showing that it's not working, we're going to go a different route. We're going to try different things. So I think that's huge. And
That's true for the data
yeah,
collection. Yes, as long
yeah.
especially if that question is within that intake form. Yes.
Exactly, exactly. And that's something that you would develop with the attorney, correct? Is that
100%.
intake? Yeah.
Exactly. So we have customer success managers that they help you with that customization when you're onboarding to be like a client with us, and those are the things that's going to make sure that it's on that intake form for when the callers do come in.
Well, thank you very much, Raquel. I think that's all the questions we have, but those were some really excellent answers. And if anything from today, we're going to remember that intake is very, very important, especially if we're spending money on marketing. So I appreciate you coming and helping us really dive into intake. So thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks.